Welcome, everybody. You are here. I did, right? Yeah. You are here for quick and easy migrations and upgrades using AI. And if things go well, I will show you that migrations and upgrades using AI is easier than wrestling with PowerPoint and Zoom and recorded things and monitors I can't see. So we'll see how it works, shall we? My name is McCormick, and here is, now we're looking at PowerPoint, of course, in its non-preview mode, because we discovered that trying to give it control over screens messes up the whole process. So we're just gonna do it this way. This is a description. Talk about non-accessible description here. So since nobody can read that, I'll just go right in here. My name's Luke. You can find me as Sell Ear on various things. I've been stumbling my way through building websites for a long, long time. I've got a degree in computer science from a million years ago, and I've got an MBA, and none of that matters because it's all about what you're doing now and have done recently, right? I have an opinionated site on Drupal development ideas called simplifydrupal.com, where I will be echoing back to some of those things. I put together simplifydrupal.com before I started using AI for code generation, but the first thing I discovered in ChatGPT was, and AI, was the connection to DALL-E, the image creator thing. So, I have all sorts of AI generated images before they became quite as uncool as they've gotten to be now. But I still kind of like them. The theme behind Simplified Drupal is that Drupal, from my perspective at the time that I put this together, I felt was unnecessarily complicated. As we in the Drupal community have kind of put things together, we tend to fill up all the things that, we tend to add more and more pieces and dials and knobs while we're still understanding it. And since everybody else is doing that, it all kind of explodes together so that you have to really, in order to understand Drupal as it's been for a while, you have to really master a lot of concepts and technologies, and it became kind of a full-time job, and I was pressing back against that. The reason that wraps in now is because now that AI tools are doing all sorts of things that are kind of beyond our comprehension, and many times, the quixotic call that I was making to simplify things now becomes a little bit more pressing, because while people can make things complicated, the AIs can make things really complicated. And in order to keep from losing our heads with that and having them explode like the little emoji there, we gotta kind of look at things. Blitzing through, you can look and see my session from last year's BADCamp, which is where I stole these slides from. I was railing against relying too much on super programmers, on insisting that everybody be a triple certified, knows everything in the world superstar, and that with a little sort of discipline and thoughtfulness, you can actually achieve aims within Drupal doing just pieces at a time. There's value to be had from understanding the parts that you understand really well and factoring things, letting, other experts in the previous call, in the previous iteration a year ago for this, take care of things. The update this year is to let AIs do things, do hard things, lift bridges, in that re-envisioning it from today's perspective. The AI is the superhero, and my thought is here, I'm going to present sort of ways to encapsulate it and to use it without giving up the human control. I think this is kind of our challenge at this point in time, is how to use the power of these, vast, crazy machines, but still keep the human beings involved with them. I'm going to skip ahead to this one. This is my most controversial slide from last year's thing, which describes, because my presentation last year was kind of directed towards site owners and manager types who know what they need, but aren't in control of necessarily the code. And so this controversial closing slide from that presentation was saying how, because of the way Drupal is constructed, because of modules and themes and other tools like that, you can access the power of all the PHP strength, all the things that back-end programs can do, but they can be packaged up in ways that you don't have to give up your control of the site. You don't have to give up your control of things. You can have your programmers, and in this case, they're the poor, angry, sad people locked outside the office. You can restrict them to doing certain things in certain ways, and then you can be responsible for putting together. Now, here a year later, those people outside the glass door there, that's the AI. That are various tools. And so rather than give them write control to your site and let them do it their way, I'm proposing keeping it under control. So for now, we'll move away from this. And I want to tell you the origin story, how this came to be. So that previous presentation was from a year ago. We're in September of 2025 right now, almost in October. Right around the beginning of 2025, this happened. And let me find it. Let me make sure I'm not giving away too much here. Can I do this? Can I put half the screen? All right. That works. All right, so I was just at work one day, and I had cleared my Drupal caches for like the millionth time. And I've always been a little annoyed at how you constantly have to clear caches. Often you know specifically why, but often you don't really know why. You don't actually know if there's anything in the cache. And so, I typed in to ChatGPT, that's my actual query, is there a Drupal module that will show you how big caches are without clearing them? I thought it might be. And I read this first little bit. As of now, there isn't a Drupal module. I was like, oh, that's disappointing. I was kind of hoping there was a module that did that. That would have been nice, but I guess it's telling me it's not. But as I scrolled down, I saw that it said, to write a Drupal module that displays this, here's what you do. And I looked and I'm like, holy cow, like I hadn't asked it to do this, but I was like, look at that, it's writing a module. And I scroll down here, and holy cow, it wrote an info file. It's there writing the classes for it. This all looks like pretty legit Drupal code, right? Like I'm not really asking for this, but I'm like, that kind of looks like a module. I could cut and paste all this stuff into things and maybe get it to work. So I asked a question, like rather than me like cut and paste, I was like, can you generate a downloadable zip file on this? And like 30 seconds later, there was a zip file. Now I'll just zoom forward, but you know, the rest of the story there is I downloaded the zip, popped it into a ddev Drupal site that I happen to have working, enabled it, and it worked. It worked like the first time out of the box. You know, I created a custom module without even trying. I just, you know, wondered if such a thing could be available. So that actually tipped me off. I was like, oh, okay, you know, there's power to this. There's interesting things you can do to this. So that was kind of the genesis story, right? So what I've discovered is that here. Let me bring this site. So one of the things leading up to this demo, I came up with a fake site to do upgrades and test things on with this. And it reminded me, who here played SimCity at some point during like the, lots of people. You know, SimCity came into existence. The programmer was writing a game like Space Invaders, you know, a later generation of that, where aliens were going to come down from space and destroy cities. And so in order to have, you know, cities to destroy in the game, he created a little simulator thing that would generate cities, and he kept working on this generator, and he kept blowing off, writing the actual game, and was building the groundwork for that, and finally decided that building the cities to destroy was more fun than actually destroying them. So that's the genesis of SimCity. There's a little bit like that. Like I put together a little site, and I actually worked way too long working on my little robot penguin, you know, demo site here. You know, including, you know, people say that AIs don't have humor, and like they don't necessarily know what's funny, but they can take guesses. And I think, you know, given some editing, putting a human in the loop for this, as I say, you know, they crank out things that I think pretty funny, right? I brought in a car with a failing module and left with a readable README and fresh brakes. I can't explain it. I just accept it. I don't know, I think that's hilarious. All right, so let me show you what we can do here. Perfect. I was worried that I didn't have the right setup. So one of the challenges of this talk is that things seem to be so easy. I've been struggling to like try to find things that are the right combination of easy enough that it can be accomplished, that it'll work as a demo, but hard enough that it just doesn't solve it so fast you don't even notice it, right? Like that's one of the things that I've had trouble with. So, you know, I tried updating a site, like from Drupal 9 to Drupal 10, for example. And it did it so fast you could hardly notice. So I'm going to show you two things, and this is live demos for better or worse. We'll do this here, and as live demos go, it might fail. And if it fails, I'll just kind of talk you through what happens when it works. But we'll see. Ready? We are doing tightrope walking without a net, so we might fall to our deaths here. So here we see some custom modules that were written by an agency. And these things drive me crazy, right? This was, if we go back to my my cranky presentation here, I wrote this slide talking about how I think you should document custom modules. That, since there's not like a large amount of information out on the web, there's no Drupal project page for a custom module, they shouldn't be keeping secrets. They shouldn't be forcing you to guess as to what they do or assume that you already know. They should have like extensive documentation telling you what they do. But if we look at this set of custom modules here, they clearly did not take my advice, right? Client events. Client events module contains project-specific overrides and hooks. So, everyone know what the client events module does now? Do we need it for the site? Is it useful? Can we turn it off? Well, it'll break if we do. We have no idea, right? And the rest of them are like that. Client search contains project-specific overrides and hooks. I get it. The cranky programmers that I was talking about before don't necessarily want to write documentation. If they do it, they'll charge a lot, and so that makes the project managers cranky, right? Nobody's liking that, and so you end up with this. So let us take a look as to how we can upgrade this using AI, shall we? So what I'm bringing up here is this is my terminal screen that hopefully is showing the Drupal site that's in a DDEV container that we're viewing here. I'm going to make double sure. I'm going to do DDEV launch and make sure, yeah, okay. That looks like the site. Go to extend, check those modules. All right, that is my, I want to make sure that I wasn't in the wrong, like I wasn't, I want to make sure that I was in the directory I thought I was, because I tend to have a lot of DDEV containers with very similar things hanging out. All right, so here, I'm going to be demoing the technique here using cursor. It is not the only one of these tools. There's a lot that actually look a lot alike. Windsurf is one that got a lot of attention for a while. I tried it. It looked just like cursor to me, so I didn't, I was kind of rooting for other, I don't want to be single sourced on any one thing. People are using Claude.io. Claude Code, rather, which is a command line interface. I have it installed, I could bring it up, but for the purposes of this, accessible piece, I'm going to use cursor. I just wanted to point out that it's not the only one. Audience here, who's using any kind of AI coding tool? Let's see, show of hands. All right, who's using cursor? Who's using Windsurf? Who's using Claude Code? Yeah, actually that makes sense. It's a very techie command line driven crowd, Claude Code. Anything I haven't mentioned that you're a fan of? that we should throw into the ring? No hands. All right, so that covers that. I want to mention, I think it's Hero is kind of interesting, has kind of a project management focus, but that's not the subject of this talk. So we're going to fire up Cursor here. One of the nice things about a Mac is I'm in, the terminal window here, and I can say cursor dot. Question?
On the screen, your avatar is
covering
the...
That is a good tip. So here, let's. How's that? Do you think so? Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll do. Now I can't see it. All right. We'll do that again. It's already open, but it won't hurt to just say it again. We'll say cursor. Now I can't spell. Dot. And that brings up here. For many of those, you may recognize this. If you use Cursor, you recognize this Cursor. But if you don't, it's Visual Studio Code, which is used in lots of things. And so all the Visual Studio Code stuff works in it. But we've got the addition of this window over here. I didn't mess up the picture, did I? It's still showing good? All right, good. It's like a chat GPT window. And we'll just say, hello. Just here. And it will respond, hi, you're working in a Drupal project with custom modules, themes, and Cypress tests. I like that, Cypress tests. What do you want to work on? All right, and one of the things that I do I should actually say one of my goals for this session is to both kind of show what can be done, but keep it accessible. I very specifically avoid trying to ivory tower myself. I want everyone here to feel totally confident you can go do this yourself, right? So there's very finicky ways of handling these things where you write long prompts that describe exactly what you're doing and where there's lots of configuration files, and Claude Code actually encourages a lot of that. I'm not doing this. I'm doing this very conversational, just like using ChatGPT. Do it. You don't really have to have worked it out ahead of time. But one of the things, if you ask it to do stuff, it has a tendency to overdo things. So I always start off with a sentence a lot like this. I prefer concise answers, which it actually gave me concise answers. So it might have profiled me. It might already know this, but I'll say, I prefer concise answers. Just answer my questions with a minimum of suggestions. If they had feelings, it'd be like, I didn't make suggestions. Why are you so mean to me? But it's a computer program. It actually doesn't take offense at anything like that, right? It's fine with that. And I want to give it context because it will tend to start running Drupal commands. So I'll let it know we're in DDev. So it knows to use DDev drush and not just try to use drush, because otherwise it wanders off into that. We're going to, one last guardrails thing I'm talking, keeping it behind the panels. As I say, please ask before making any changes to files. Because if you don't do that, it'll start, I did this, it's very ambitious. And what's it? All right, so what we're going to do, let me go over here to I don't want the DDev directory, I want the web directory. I want to go modules, open up the custom modules, and let's just open up a random one here. Okay. You see the custom module. It can tell what I've opened up. So I ask it this question. It says, you have the client user's custom module open. What do you need help with? All right, so we go back and we're trying to remember what we're doing here, right? Client users, right? Says, client, users module containing project-specific overrides and hooks. So let me say, can you improve the description so that the module explains what it does more specifically? All right, let's see what it does. It reads the module. It says description. It asks me what functionality does it provide. I'm going to say, I don't know. Please read the code and tell me. I'm a little, you know how I'm saying live demo, you don't know if things are going to work? Usually when I've done it before, it goes to this next step. So I had to prod it a little bit. That was a little bit of surprising. So the module auto adds new users, adds log, update, should I sorry, let me read. Is this big enough? Should I make these letters bigger for you guys? Not big enough. All right, can I? Yeah, make that. All right. So it answered that the module auto adds new users to the authenticated group and adds a login, logout menu link using SAML auth. Should I update the description to reflect this? I say, yes, please. By the way, Eric Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was complaining that people are too polite, the AIs, that they say please and thank you and things like that, and that it's wasting cycles. But I don't know, I find, maybe this is an illusion, but I've found while I've been using these that it tends to respond to me in similar language that I respond to it. And I kind of want it to be polite to me. So I say please and thank you, and it seems to reflect that. And I don't think it's just generically doing that, because I've said, when I've been happy with things it's done, I give it a little heart emoji, for example. And then it responds to me with emojis as part of its communication. So while I know it doesn't refigure the model, it's got enough stuff that it's paying attention to some things that I do and respond there. So I say thank you. All right, so you can see over here in our edit window, it made changes to the module info file and asked me if I want to keep or reject them. And this is an important feature I find that I insist that it first started off-frame, but sometimes it'll forget, where it runs it by me first. There's a human in the loop. We're not giving it the keys to the kingdom. It's asking for the changes that I asked for. It's making the changes that I asked for, and it's submitting them to me for approval. Let's keep those. And we'll go over here. And so is the client users. So instead of user module containing project-specific overrides and hooks, let's flush the cache. Did it flush it? And now, if we go back there, automatically adds new users to the authenticated group and provides SAML-based login, logout menu links. That's better, don't you think? But maybe someone might be, now here's the fun thing. I haven't done that. Can you do something similar for the other custom modules? Please. By the way, I use the pro level of Cursor. It's $20 a month. That seems to fill all my needs. I use it a lot. I use it like all day, every day. And I've never run out of whatever it is it measures. There's like $100 level. I don't know. It's hard to imagine that's much better. But let's go back, flush all the caches. And now, see, I got 10 minutes left, so it did all the modules. All right, let's speed things up a little bit here. So, I mean, that's nice and all. Descriptions are good, but really, you're often going to need more information about the modules than this, right? So, well, let's give it just one. Let's pick, say, what should I do? Pages. All right. For the client pages module, can you create a readme.md file in the modules directory explaining how it works for both an admin, user, and a programmer that would consider updating it. Yeah, see what it does. I've got a lot of faith. This usually works out. Look at that. It's creating a README for it. Thinking. Get 125 things. All right, let's review it. So review the next file. Oh wait, that was the previous one. Let's review the next file there. Oh, I didn't actually approve all these things. So let's approve client pages, search. These are the info file updates. And here we go. So, Visual Studio Code, or at least Cursor, comes with a Markdown previewer. So let's just take a minute here to kind of admire what it did here. It created this pretty nice, pretty full-featured documentation that now, in terms of proper AI usage, before committing this or submitting it, for the purpose of this demo that I have, 10 minutes left, and I'm not going to review it, but for the actual thing, I would actually read it, make sure that it makes sense. For what it's worth, when I've done this in the past, I ask it to put a note on the top of the README file that I create in this way that says, this is created by an AI, has not been yet reviewed by a human being, and I have it say that until I get around to reviewing it. So that's not enforced anyway. I think that's, I'm kind of proposing that as best practices. All right, so we don't have too much time. Let me tell you, I'm going to skip something that I'd considered for this that I've done in the past, which is, and I'll post a video of this going on, is now that these modules have READMEs, I can ask it to put a help link on the module page that will bring that up. It's kind of brilliant, and maybe if there's a few seconds, or if you ask me, I'll show you, but the really sweet one, here's a trick that you guys are going to want to use, and I don't want to miss the time. So let's go back and look at our site. Actually, we're on our site here. Ready? So our penguins are really proud of their, penguins like fish. And so for their particular clientele, getting fish with your, auto mechanics is an important thing. And so they've got this little JavaScript thing where every time you mouse over it, it changes color, right? Penguins think it's cool. I mean, they're not very sophisticated. I mean, they're penguins, right? But they find out actually that they're losing money on the fish thing because it turns out fish are really expensive, and they want to back off from that, right? So if we ask here, let's go ask our chat here. He's saying, on the home page, there is a message that says, what is doing that? All right, let's just ask it, where is this, right? So it's looking through things, hopefully. Again, live, barely scripted demo here. So I say, oh, look, it found it. So it says it found where it is. It's in, I of course knew this. It's in the file, pagefront.html.twig. Most people in this room are not surprised to hear that that's in. And, you could change it. The AI will change it for you. Your programmers will change it for you. This actually came up in the real world because I've worked on a few sites where, in fact, hard-coded text was in the Twig template files. And so instead of the site owner being able to change, like, the biggest text on their front page, they had to put in a request to, the programmers to do it. And then, weeks later and thousands of dollars later, they get to change the text, right? And, from my perspective of last year's simplifying Drupal thing, I just think that's awful, right? I think that's just, a flaw in the Drupal ecosystem as it is. So instead of having to change it, ready? Working without a net, typewrote, we're going to try it. We're going to say, can you make it so that I can change that text in a theme parameter? Let me try. I have no clue how to write a theme parameter. I know they exist. But I definitely, if I had to write one, I could research it and figure it out. But let's see if Cursor can do it, shall we? So it's looking in the info file. It found the right theme. My theme file. My theme is a subtheme of something called Zuvi. All right. So made the headline text, added theme settings, created themes, changed. So it went and did it. Here, let me close these old windows here. Let's see, did it make the changes? So it wrote some code. Review next file. Keep that. Review next file. Again, if I'm not in a time-constrained demo with 3 minutes left in my time, I'd read this, but we're just gonna vibe code our way through this, right? So we go in here, and let's go to, appearance. And let's go to settings, and we're in our things, and let's hope it worked, right? Homepage headline text. Some fish is free, depending on order size. The custom logo path is valid. Let's hope that doesn't count. I'm going to flush caches just to be safe. Like as I say, you never know when you're going to need cache. Let's go, let's see what happens. Grand finale. Hell, it didn't work. So, that's the danger of the live demo. But it wrote it. I would have preferred if it had worked, but, because that didn't quite have the nice ending flourish of my my thing. But I've actually done this with client sites, where I've had it take things that were hard coded, and now we're just seeing me, right? Yeah. Okay. Where it takes things that were hard coded into the theme and makes them theme parameters. And since I'm out of time, you'll just have to take my word for it. All right, we're out of time. Is there any shouted question? I'll slide it in there before turning things off. Anybody have any thoughts? Nope. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you could do this? Did you see anything here that you're tempted to do on your own sites? All right, I'll take those nods as being affirmative, and I'll just take whatever win I can find. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the end of the session. Appreciate you coming.